do something bad to us, we are going to do things to you that have never been done before.
Well, g'day, folks. How you going? I hope you're having a very good Friday. It is the Friday free-for-all. We've got a bit of a pre-record to kick it all off with today because our guests couldn't join us a little later this evening, and it's a pretty important subject that we're covering. It's a subject that will touch everybody in every state and every territory of this country at some stage in the not-too-distant future. Its insidious reach is about to be sprung on Victoria. It has... and the projected spring in Queensland is almost upon us as well, with parts of our country, particularly our forests, being locked up. And those of us that like exploring and going out, four-wheel driving and being in nature will not be allowed to do so. There's a rally going to be held tomorrow down in Victoria in Mansfield, and joining me to talk about what the rally is trying to focus people's attention on are two people who are very much involved with the rally tomorrow. Carly Murphy joins us, and so too Simon Christie from Four Wheel Drive TV. Thanks for coming on, guys. Really appreciate your time. Mansfield, a truly beautiful part of the world, and I'm a Victorian lad. I haven't spent any four-wheel driving time in the high country, but I have flown over it a lot of times. A beautiful part of the world. It shocks me that the government thinks it can take this away from not just Victorians, but from people all over the world.
We're facing a huge threat here, and thank you so much for having us on. Really appreciate the time and the opportunity to speak. This is a dire situation that we're facing. It's not just about civil liberties. It's not just about the Victorian High Country. This is an assault to all Australians that we are facing, and it's an absolute peril that the truth needs to come out there, and it's no dire conspiracy or anything major. It's really just part of an agenda that is trying to take away our freedoms to access the Australian way of life. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and they're doing it in an insidious manner. What are the excuses they're using to try and lock up the forests of Victoria at the moment?
It's really simple, and it's a lie that's generated by the Greens, and I've seen publicised documents, press releases from them. They're going out there and saying, and I'm a person who's been using these forests for many reasons across Victoria, the rest of Australia, I'm almost 60 now. So ever since I can remember, I've been camping, four-wheel driving, hunting, motorbike riding, horse riding, taking my dog for a walk, all those sorts of things in forest. And we're in the situation where the Greens have turned around and they said that there's this terrible group of people that have been making huge amounts of money off the forests and locking all of us free Australians out of our own forest. And these people are the loggers. Now, whilst that's the key message, and I can understand that a lot of voters would be hugely offended by these greedy, financially orientated loggers taking up our forests and locking them up, the fact is that whilst the Greens say that the forests and the loggers are stopping us from accessing the forests, I've been going to these forests in the areas where the logging's being done. I've seen the types of environmentally balanced logging that is being done. There are definitely parts of Australia where we are missing out on tall timbers and well-established old forests. I'm not saying it's not an issue, but from what I've seen, the loggers do a fantastic job of doing nomadic rotational harvesting that doesn't see areas overworked. It has minimal impact on the use of those forests, and it's a fantastic way to actually maintain the forests, maintain access to the forests, and minimise the risk of
We've had a bit of a dropout.
And minimise the risks of bushfire through the logging activities. So whilst the Greens are saying that we are locked out and cannot access our forests, hunters, four-wheel drivers, campers, bushwalkers, horse riders, motorbike riders, mountain bikers, and thousands of other lifestyle choices, prospecting is another big one, have been accessing these forests. So we're being fed lies by the Greens from the very beginning, and it's frustrating, it's infuriating, and I can see again how it's getting the vote of inner city voters. But the fact is they're not getting the truth. And the truth is that we've got a great forest system that's working well. And if you want to cut logging, you are going to cut a lot of jobs and massively impact the economy of rural Victoria, where unfortunately thousands and thousands of Australians live. They're going to be massively impacted. So this whole agenda, the lies they're spreading to get the votes to do it, the underhanded way they're going about it, the whole consultation process has been, it's a hand-selected committee, and the consultation process has not been advertised. And when we did finally find out about the consultation process, and we sent four-wheel drivers, hunters, people who care about the forests, and local people to those consultation processes, it lasted around 5 minutes before they were shut down, before they realised that they were overwhelmingly being outvoted and facing questions that they couldn't answer because their whole conspiracy is based on lies. Their whole agenda is based on lies, that the loggers are doing the wrong thing and locking us out, which they're not.
Carly, what is the emotion of people that you're finding who will be coming, I hope, to your rally tomorrow in Mansfield? Obviously, Simon's pretty motivated about it, but Simon does a lot of public speaking and is used to being public and on TV and bits and pieces. What about the blokes who just like going out and doing some wheeling? What are you hearing from them?
I think well, obviously everyone's angry, but I think the big thing is confusion. People don't know what's going on and what this will mean for them. We're all looking for all different answers. You know, you look at the proposed Great Forest National Parks website.
One or two connection issues at my end.
I can still hear Carly.
Oh, very good. Sorry, away you go.
So if you look at their website,
locked up again.
So
by the look of it at my end.
They've got like hiking, bush walking, you know, horse. There's no horse riding. There's no four-wheel driving. There's no nothing. It's just basically, you know, tourists walking around.
So tomorrow's event is in the heart of Mansfield. What time's it getting underway?
Yep. 1 o'clock until 3 o'clock.
Now, I know too that you've got a bit of merchandise available. I've seen your new wind cheaters have turned up and will be available. Obviously, you're going to need to raise a bit of funds to try and continue this fight. The Victorian government is one of the most resistant to public opinion in Australia. I think they're all pretty, resistant. But you guys have really copped it the hardest over the last 4 years. And now that the tyrannical Dan seems to have disappeared, put on 40 kilos and 3 chins, you have got a woman now running the state who doesn't seem to have changed anything.
No, I think they might have been twins. In all honesty.
Simon, this is an insidious problem. The Greens are not, while their heartland is Melbourne inner city, they are all over Australia, and they're doing significant damage in line with their supporters in the Teals and associated other political groups. How is this scare campaign from a bunch of greenies able to create so much damage? Is there apathy, do you think, in this instance, in the four-wheel drive hunting shooting community, or is it pure arrogance coming from government?
That's a really important question. Let's go back to the initial definition. These Greens that call themselves Greens, they really need another name for that, because what we find is the four-wheel drivers, the hunters, the people who are out there in the forest, so the people who actually really care about the environment. We do a lot of cleaning up. We do a lot of positive things for the communities. We spend a lot of money in rural Australia keeping small towns open. So it's from the economy right through to the environment. We're the ones who definitely care about the green movement, care about the environment flat out. The Greens 100%. The Greens have their own agenda, and let's be 100% clear. In Victoria, the only place where the Greens can get elected is in the dead centre of Melbourne. The most ungreen place anyone could live. And the people with the least understanding of what actually goes on in green areas, where out there in the green areas, nobody in their right mind would ever vote for a Greens member full stop. So nobody in Greens areas wants the green agenda, wants these green opinions, wants to be forced into the things that we are now seeing happening. But unfortunately, the Greens are in the areas where most voters reside. They're using scare tactics, lies, bullying, a whole range of threats and harassment to leverage themselves in a way that they're doing the conscious right thing, and they guilt trip a lot of apathetic Australians into thinking, well, what is the right thing? These greedy loggers are really doing the wrong thing by the environment, so I can do my bit by voting Green, by voting for Labor and supporting these grubby backdoor deals that these politicians have got their hands in each other's pocket, and the preference vote system, etc., is really causing this situation. So we're seeing leverage from the Greens. They're sending the wrong message to the right people, and they're able to get the vote and get people to listen with their lies, with their grubby tactics, and it's absolutely disgusting. On the far side of that,
find it staggering, because most of these Greens would be driving electric cars that would be able to drive into the bush but would be flat and wouldn't be able to drive out of them.
That's what they want. That's what they want. Their agenda to save the environment is to have us all in 15-minute cities driving electric vehicles. So that's their whole agenda. Their misunderstanding of, let's not get into the whole CO2 debacle. The whole issue about the environment is people don't understand the facts and the truth. And they want to protect the environment. Fantastic. That's wonderful. But let's have a scientific, balanced, real economical approach to it. And let's get the stakeholders involved who really understand the bush, who work in it, who reside in it, who recreate in it and are passionate about it. Let's get them involved. But that's what the Greens don't want, because they know that they can't argue against the facts, the truth. So the four-wheel drivers, the hunters, for the bigger picture, are people in Australia who are pretty well off. We live in a very safe country. There's no civil wars. We don't have a lot of mass shootings. We live in a fairly nice, safe society, and people are pretty happy to just get along with their own daily lives and not be fussed with the political situation. The fact is that we now need people to get off their slack, apathetic asses and actually do something, because we are now facing an onslaught, the biggest war, the biggest civil destruction that we're going to see of our society here in Australia is this woke agenda. And I can't speak out enough about it. So apologies if I'm a bit passionate, but it's something I care a lot about.
No, 100% passion is what we love here at this show, I can tell you. One of the concerning things for certainly people in my part of the world, in Queensland, is that there is talk at the moment they're going to lock down the Cape. Now, Cape York in the four-wheel driving world, as far as I know, is one of the pinnacles of four-wheel driving anywhere in the world. They think they're going to be able to lock this down. I don't know how people are going to allow it. So how do we motivate these apathetic folks, Simon? How do we, even if they're not into four-wheel driving, if they're not into shooting, if they're not into hunting, go out and stand in a forest, sit in a forest for half an hour and see what it does for you.
It's really easy for me to stand up and speak. I've got a platform, I've got a brand, I've got an industry that listens and respects me. I've got a community backing me. You know, the people with the real balls are people like Carly. Carly has come from nowhere in the last few months. She stood up off her own bat. She's put her safety, her health, her life, her employment at risk. And in the first 10 days, her Facebook page attracted 10,000 followers. The movement's there. There's people who want to follow. And we need more people like Carly, and we need people to support Carly and really get behind her cause, which is why I'm here supporting. She has inspired me. She's given me such an instinct to drive and get behind this because of what she has personally put at risk. But what she stands for, a simple, normal Australian person who stood up and gone, no, this is not right. I can see what's going on and I can see the damage. We need more people to stand up and follow in Carly's example. She's hugely inspiring, and we just need people to, which is Carly's message. It's a real simple message. We just want people to know. People don't know what's happening, and if we can educate them, if people can help share Carly's message like what we're trying to do, then we're going to be in a far better place for having the power, the vote, the say to really make an effort.
So, Carly, this is your Facebook page, and obviously we'd like to get as many people onto it as we possibly can at the moment. Leave our state forests alone. Now, go to Facebook and check this out. Now, this isn't purely just for Victorians. I get the feeling this is going to become a national movement. I know that there are a lot of very concerned people in Queensland and northern New South Wales.
Yeah. We already have a lot of membership from New South Wales and Queensland who actually come down to our forests to use our forests. And they're
There's a great look at the hoodies.
about, losing access. Yeah. So they're worried about losing their access, which it's just terrible. But then people from outside Victoria, they're not able to sign the petitions and everything. So we're trying to help people from outside Victoria to have their voices heard, and that's through sending emails to Steve Dimopoulos and to Jacinda Allen. Like we've got all of those email addresses and everything on there, and people need to just start sending emails, just call, make phone calls.
Just explain to us who this Steve Dimopoulos is.
He's the Minister for Health, Minister of the Environment for Victoria and outdoor leisure or something like that. But he lives in Oakley.
Should we also be targeting, Simon, maybe the Victorian tourism bodies? Because there are many people out of state who travel to the Victorian High Country every year just to go four-wheeling through it, to go in and around those beautiful areas, Bright, Mount Buller, Mount Buffalo, Mount Hotham, and all the parts getting to and from them. Truly beautiful, beautiful areas. So how do we help?
Carly's done a fantastic job of unifying a lot of local businesses and reaching out to a lot of organisations, many of which have actually been listed by the other side as supporting businesses for their cause without them even knowing that they're listed on the other side in support of this national park. So we're seeing the message of which Carly's really pushing is to get this message out. Once people know about it, their eyebrows pop up and they go, really? Is that what they're doing? Is that what they're attempting to do? I'm totally against that. So that message is really important, really strong. Getting it out to tourism, getting it out to your local businesses, getting it out to all the people who are going to be affected, the stakeholders, is critical. But the point you raised earlier is this is not the tip of the iceberg. The iceberg has already sunk the Titanic and it's well on its way to the bottom. We're now trying to save the survivors that are floating on top of the Titanic and trying to deal with the rest of the ice. So whether it's the firearms owners who are under ridiculous tactics from Parliament in Western Australia, we've already lost half of Moreton Island. We're about to see limitations on vehicle access to Kagari, Fraser Island. The issue, the debacle up on Cape York, return Cape York to native title. The government's going to fund a $5 billion city to employ Indigenous folk. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm all for Indigenous folk, Indigenous culture, the whole lot. Our society in Australia, we do not understand or know enough about our own Indigenous culture here in Australia, which should be ingrained in our schools, in our education system. There's so much for us to learn, respect, and understand. But the excessive funding that's driven by this green woke left agenda, it drives me absolutely nuts. So we're not at all being racist. We're not being anti-Indigenous. We have so much to learn in forest management from the Indigenous people who are sitting on so much critical information. We need to be working with them. But the way the government funds this to make themselves look good on a national and international scale, the way they're harvesting votes off this agenda, is all part of the same project. So all Carly is doing is, yes, we're utilising this Victorian High Country as a flashpoint that we need to activate people and get this message out. But this message is the same for any Australian in any state. You're all under attack. Your kids are not going to have places. You won't have places to take your kids fishing. You won't have places to take your kids for a shot of the rifle, to do some rabbit hunting. What we're going to see.
Think about a dog.
Taking your dog for a walk. It's going to be an absolutely horrific situation. And I can tell you, the proof is in the pudding. The High Country and other areas of Victoria, the other areas of Australia, are going to burn because of mismanagement. Not literally, actually going to burn because of the undergrowth, the mismanagement of weeds, the mismanagement of the entire area. It's going to be an absolute tinderbox that's going to cost Australian lives It's going to cost homes, livestock. It's going to cost native animals. It's going to cost us everything because these Greens don't understand green ecology. They don't understand the environment. They don't understand Australia. So Carly's message is just the flashpoint for all hunters, all four-wheel drivers, all bushworkers, all fossickers, anybody who enjoys the outdoors here in Australia. You've got to unite. This isn't just about the Victorian High Country. This is about the whole of Australia. This is about Australian freedoms and protecting our Australian way of life.
Which is being torn down at every turn. The dream of owning a home now probably out of the reach of anybody who hasn't already got a sizable deposit. You're not going to be allowed to get one. They don't want you to think you own a home. They're going to, and Sydney is a classic example. In the last week, we've had the release of 8 new mini cities in Sydney, all with transport hubs supposedly, which will be able to be locked down and, 15 minutes everywhere. Green areas, there'll be a park for you to walk around. But I have heard, you mentioned animals. I've heard stories that cats and dogs domestically will not be allowed coming times because of their excrement. Too difficult to deal with.
What about ours?
On the footpath. Oh, they'll have a pipe for that, and they can train you to sit in the one place. So, it is totally maniacal what they are planning, and they're doing it in the 1,000 paper cuts of death style way, one little bit at a time. I don't know how we wake up these Greens. I found out the other day too that there isn't a green. There isn't a green in the CFA. I've got a friend who's reasonably high up in the CFA. And I said, you must have Greens advising you and all that sort of thing. Well, he didn't stop laughing for 15 minutes. And then he abused me for another 15 minutes of how stupid am I. And then went on to explain that the Greens don't get out of inner city Melbourne.
No.
The only time they see a tall tree is if they go into, the Botanical Gardens.
100%, and you've raised an amazing point. Let's go back to 2009 with Black Saturday. The high country lit up, 300 and whatever lives lost. The damage to the ecology, the environment, the economy, massive. 100% on the heads of the Greens who locked up those state forests. They overgrew. There was no access for firefighters to get in. And once the damage is done, the four-wheel drive clubs are the ones going out there taking hay, taking feed, supporting stock, rebuilding huts, rebuilding sheds, rebuilding fences for farmers. Not a single Green was out there with a hammer or an axe or a shovel doing a millimetre of work. These are the people that are supposed to care about our environment. They care about nothing but their inner city latte and their electric cars, 100%.
I believe that those Greens are the ones that should be dragged out of inner city Melbourne, given a rifle and 3,000 rounds of ammunition and put into a paddock with half dead stock that have seen a fire come through it. All right, there's your job today. Put them all down. It's your fault.
Good luck.
Yeah, but no, they're weak.
And they've taken away our big. Sorry, they've taken away our big resource of fighting these fires by getting rid of logging. The loggers were the ones who were fighting our fires. They were putting in the brakes. They were doing so much to help us with bushfires. Like, I'm in Ilden. We are surrounded by forest. My dad, he's been a CFA for 45 years. He was on the ground. He was stuck on Marysville Oval in 2009. We thought that he was gone. I lost friends from school, everything through those fires.
Yep, I lost a friend, Brian Naylor, the old Channel 9 newsreader.
Wow.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, Brian and his wife died up there too.
It's barbaric what they've done.
Yep, and they should be brought before the court, made to justify the decision.
They won't.
But
that'll happen.
But they won't.
Oh, that will happen one day. Trust me. I don't know if you or I will be alive to see it. I'm going to make it happen. Yeah, but I want to make it happen too.
We just need the average voter to understand what's going on We need the average voter to understand about our Australian way of life. We went and fought some of the fiercest world wars of recent years, and the Australians have a huge reputation on the battlefield as being loyal, brave, hardworking diggers who gave their lives, risked their lives to free up the rest of the world. I'd hate to see Australia go to war these days.
In our woke society.
Mate, as long as the war happens somewhere between Darwin and Brisbane, we should be okay. But God help us if it goes offshore or comes from offshore. Don't get me started on the military.
We can't even deal with the issues in Alice Springs at the moment. So don't even talk about. What we need is everybody to get onto Carly's Facebook page, which is Victorians Against the Great Fire Park. Victorians Against, it should pop up. We need everyone to get on there. We need everyone to support and understand what Carly is trying to do. We need the people who can get there tomorrow to get to the rally in Mansfield at 1 p.m. Show your support. From the local area, people traveled from Melbourne and other areas that are concerned about what's going on. They're intelligent, well-meaning, caring people, and that's what this movement is all about. It's not about the bogans or the buttheads. There's no skullbuggery. There's no illegal activity. This is responsible Australians standing up to be counted for responsible activities.
So you've got a pretty good area to draw from. Mansfield's a couple of hours from the New South Wales border, depending on which way you're coming down. A couple of hours out of Melbourne, couple of hours from sort of western-ish Victoria, central Western Victoria, or the eastern side of Western Victoria. I know it's not really Western Victoria, but it's a good draw area. There's a lot of people that live around there. You'll get, I hope, a great crew coming up from Melbourne. My advice would be, folks, when you pull over and buy fuel, when you pull over and buy food or drink, make sure you let the people behind the counter know that the government is trying to stop you coming and spending your money in their store. All right. On anywhere on that drive you go, I'm going to, Victoria to support to support being able to wheel in the forests. If you don't support us, we're not going to be here to buy your fuel. We're not going to be here to buy your food. We're not going to be able to tell people what great service you offer. You're going to go broke.
100%.
We need to get the businesses behind us.
100%.
Yeah, cool. Guys, anything more I can do to help, just reach out. Always happy to be here. And I really hope that you get a huge amount of people tomorrow. I hope it's a nice day in Victoria, a nice drive, head out. It's only 2-3 hours from wherever you might be. And it'll, well, it's only just stopped raining here. So, hopefully it'll get your way too. But look, Victorians are a hardy mob. You get the warmest clothes in Australia, apart from the Tasmanians, and a little bit of rain never killed a Victorian, I don't think. So I hope that you have a huge turnout tomorrow, 1 o'clock in the Botanical Gardens in Mansfield. Carly, thank you. Simon, thank you. And like I say, guys, if I can help in any way, please just reach out.
Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
Agenda 21 is kind of a code name for a master plan originated at the United Nations to change the political and economic system of the world to one of total collectivism. And in order to do that, people must not be allowed to have independence. They must be dependent on the state for everything. Otherwise, they won't be easily controlled by the state. That means they can't have private property, mostly. They cannot have land of their own. They have to live in preferably high-rise apartments that are provided to them by the state as a benefit, so to speak. Oh, good, we got a free apartment. But these people at the top want all humans to be dependent on the largesse of the state. That means that they don't want anybody living out in the boonies. Anybody that's got a couple of acres of land and his own water supply and can grow his own food and that kind of thing, or have some sheep or some chickens, these people are a threat to the collectivist society because they aren't going to go to the politicians and say, please feed me, please clothe me, please give me shelter. They tend to be independent. That's the secret behind Agenda 21. They want people out of the country. They want corporations out there growing all the food and that kind of thing, but they don't want anybody living out there, because that way they cannot be controlled. In order to control mankind, we have to get them all into the big cities. We have to rack them up and stack them up, get them dependent on the state for their food, their shelter, their electrical power, their water, everything. That's the dirty secret behind Agenda 21.
True, folks. How are you? Evening again. So I see, Crunch, you say, well, what's 2030 all about? Well, they've had to adjust Agenda 21, and Agenda 21 is a global thing they've been working to since the early 2000s. Things have had to be pushed back a little bit because there have been some delays, particularly in the last 12 years. The plans that they had for us. I think that that 2030, Agenda 2030, is just an update of Agenda 21, but it is essentially exactly the same thing. Daniel, yeah, apartments and cells. Well, that's what they're doing for Sydney and everywhere else. Rest assured, with the rental crisis that we're currently, or housing crisis that we're currently going through in Australia, the solution will be high-density housing. What's that? That's high-rises gathered around transport hubs, which can be deactivated at any time. Transport hubs that you will be locked out of if you don't have enough social credit score points, for instance. You might be able to live next to the train, but you won't be able to get on the train. And I suspect just about everybody living in those 15-minute cities eventually will be in exactly that position. You will not be allowed out of your area. You want to see the beach? Get online and have a look at a picture they will share with you. That will be as close as you get to it. A bit like our forests. What was it like to walk in the forests, Mum? What was it like to go four-wheel driving, Dad? What was it like to go fishing for trout in a creek in the middle of nowhere? All gone under what these bastards propose. Now, I know it's easy to say, Victorians, what are you thinking? But inner city Melbourne is high density living. Okay? Melbourne, I think last time I heard, was around 4 million, probably over 4 million in population now, closer to 5. And it is high density living pretty much all over the place. But inner city Melbourne, very high density living. And you've got to think there's probably a good 1 million people just living in that inner city area. The Greens, the young ones, the ones that have just come out of university, you think they know everything, and we've, obviously forgotten everything in our old age, senility. They come in starting all these new great old ideas. Why do these old communist ideas keep coming back? Why? Because there are old communists. Keep talking about them. There are people in our universities dedicated to subverting the education of our children and putting them on a course to get us to, well, you can see where we are now. Imagine what, if left unchecked, our universities will be putting out in 10 years' time, can you? I'm frightened to think of the kind of degrees and the kind of people that will be coming out of those degree courses in 10 years' time. I don't think the sciences are going to come up pretty well. I mean, unless there are actually young people today who are really interested in science. But how would they know what real science was today? They don't have shows like The Curiosity Show, which was a science-based show that I remember from my childhood. I also remember Dr. Julius Sumner Miller. I hated that science show as a child. It was black and white, so that didn't help. But I wished now, and I have watched quite a lot of Professor Julius Sumner Miller's TV shows on YouTube. because he's such a character. I wasn't able to appreciate it at such a young age. But he was teaching actual, real science. I wish I had a more science brain when I was a kid. I just got off on the idea of launching water rockets. That was about as scientific as I got. Projectiles moving at great velocity with water and a bike pump. We need to somehow negate these brainwashed, highly motivated leftists to, I don't know, see the truth. How do you teach a young one to see the truth? I don't know. Take their iPhone off them. Take their communication away from them and tell them that's what you're doing with us. You're taking our communication, our way to communicate with our earth, our mother, away from us. So we'll take something away from you. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. I hope you can get to Mansfield tomorrow, folks. It will be a great rally to be part of. I really hope you can be part of that. Mansfield, 1 o'clock in the Botanic Gardens there. And Simon will be there. If you haven't seen Simon before, if you're unaware, Simon has a show called 4-Wheel Drive TV. He does a lot of high country 4-wheel driving and a lot of tours all over Australia, amongst other things. He's been involved in Shooters and Fishers and a whole heap of other bits and pieces. And funnily enough, he and I used to go to school together many, many, many years ago. He doesn't remember me and I barely remembered him, but the name rang a bell. So yeah, it all comes back together. But yeah, we went to school together, boarding school at that. Very strange. I want to show you a couple of other things that have popped up in my feeds in the last couple of days. This is an interesting one, also out of Melbourne. So that's an interesting cloud formation, don't you think? Now, I can't really tell you what street in Melbourne that is. I want to say it could be Punt Road or, oh, hang on, let me have another look. It may not be Punt Road. It looks like it's northern end of the city at least, and probably heading south. But what an amazing little light show. Weirdest kind of clouds. And I've got to say, if there was any kind of spraying involved in that, well, it's more sign writing, skywriting, I would have thought. But that happened in Melbourne 2 days ago. There were reports of similar celestial events in the sky in a number of other countries during the day, but over a 24-hour period in different parts of the world. So interesting stuff. I've also been sent an email from a lady who ordinarily wouldn't send me such an email. She was explaining to me that she'd had a dream, I hesitate to call it a vision, a dream. And in that dream, the Archangel Gabriel was seen summoning 7 angels. Now, those of you who are into the biblical telling of what is to come will understand that what that refers to. That undoubtedly refers to the second coming, the beginning of the war, the angels amassing. There is a school of thought that says once the angels are called to amass, you have 7 days. And when I received this email, it was 4 days in, so now it'd be 5, according to her timeline. This puts us around Sunday, which is interesting. Monday is a very interesting period. It has been named for from a variety of sources, including Donald Trump, without alluding to anything specific on it. It's just a day that's been thrown up, like so many others. And I wouldn't go pinning any hopes to it if I were you. I would just say, if you have been reading your Bible, if you are aware of the biblical tellings of what is coming, then you might be at this stage seeking out your friends and having a conversation with them about repenting and accepting God. I genuinely, like this lady and a couple of others who've contacted me, genuinely feel we are very close to something very, very big. Will that be a good big? Well, hopefully for a lot of us, yes. But the big thing we're talking about is going to be savage. People we know will die. People we know and love close to us will die. They will not move forward. They will not come back. They will not move on. And that can be very confronting, especially when the truth is made known. Now, if the 7 angels and the 7 trumpets do happen to sound at the same time, remember Q's 7 trumpets drop, well, I think we can expect something pretty significant is going to happen. Is no doubt in my mind that the American media, mainstream media, is releasing its grip on the truth, its strangulation, and is slowly pulling back the shade, or the curtain, if you like, on Joe Biden, where instead of the American voting public finding a distinguished old gentleman pulling all the strings behind the curtain, they're finding a old man suffering a terrible, debilitating disease that is taking his mind from him. It's now really at a sad point. And if the whole country in America is saying at the moment that Joe Biden can't lead, and let's face it, everybody from George Clooney down is saying that, why is it so hard to remove him? If he is suffering from dementia, as appears likely, or senility, he'll forget about it tomorrow. Move on. You could put Joe in a tie and a suit and sit him in an office somewhere and tell him he's still president. It won't matter. He'll just go off and have a nap and get up. You know, you could put a camera in the corner. He'd talk to it. Talk to the floorboard. So what's the issue removing him? Well, the issue could be Dr., although I'm not really, Jill Biden. She does enjoy the notoriety. She does enjoy the 6-star service. And as I was talking about yesterday, a journalist rode in the presidential motorcade to an event in Minneapolis a week or so ago and described the whole thing. She gushed about it. Everybody, oh God, it was so lovely just to go through. No traffic lights, everybody. No speed limits, turn left, just whip around the corner and be gone, and be ushered in to, back through back rooms and service elevators and, shielded from the public is what she's saying. That the Biden administration is shielding the Bidens from the public and the public from the Bidens. They know that any public interaction is going to result in a disaster. Could it be less of a disaster with Joe Biden than it would be with Kamala Harris running instead? There's a lot of people saying, oh, Big Mike's not going to come out. Well, Big Mike will come out. Trust me. They have no other choice, but it's too early for Big Mike to come out. They can't give Trump 3 months to attack Big Mike. All right? Because he'll tear him apart. No, Big Mike has to make that appearance sometime, I want to say sometime from early September on. Has to declare before the mid of September because they're going to have to print all the ballots and names and all that sort of shit are going to have to be on there. So it'll depend a bit on when that closing date is. But I think that's around the early portion of September. Big Mike can't afford to be out campaigning or even be seen to be campaigning until then. Because when Big Mike comes out, the Democrats will get behind it, Obama will come out, and we will have that whole big swell of support, you know, with the pussy hat wearers and the bloody criers and the screamers and the liars and the cheats and the thieves, they'll all be out. And they will build this wave that will just be a tsunami of bullshit that washes away any possible journalistic opposition or questioning. Not that there will be, because the journalists will, who have been so far left, are just starting to come back to the centre, and maybe just a little bit to the right. As soon as Big Mike announces, there will be a tsunami of support, and the media will immediately switch and go straight back to supporting Obama, or Big Mike, as the case would be in this case. Now, that tsunami could easily run 6 to 8 weeks. They need to propel it. They'll need to keep feeding it, but they'll do it. They'll do it any way they can. Any way they can. Don't forget, of course, that they've also shipped in somewhere close to 10 million illegals in the last 4 years. And those illegals have been shipped off to the red states, the states that support Trump. Of course, those folks who have come in as illegals will also be allowed to vote because, surprise, surprise, as we saw the other day, the US Senate has decided that it is now no longer going to support a bill that means people need to ID themselves when they go in to vote. So no voter ID for America. Why? Because the Democrats would never, ever, ever, ever win one seat. Well, never, ever, ever is probably a long time. But they would not get any form of representation. Why is that? Because clearly the people don't want that kind of representation. But the Dems can't allow that to happen, and nor can the Rhine, because they are the people working for the 13 families. They are the people pulling the strings and having their strings pulled by the deep state. Filthy bastards. Filthy bastards. And it has to end. Well, maybe it is ending. What happened in Russia yesterday? Apparently the whole economy crashed. Pardon me. Well, if the whole economy's crashed in Russia, and I'm not disputing the fact that it has seemed to have taken a hell of a dive, I wouldn't be getting too concerned about it. Much of what we hear about the new quantum financial system is based out of Russia. A lot of the people behind that system, I'm a believer, in Europe and in those former Eastern Bloc countries, some of them, they are good people. Don't get me wrong. I would have thought that if there was going to be a world collapse, Russia would collapse its own economy first. And that's what it appears to be, because there were no indications to anywhere in the outside world that the Russian economy was teetering. So do you think for one moment that Vladimir Putin couldn't pick up the phone and say, crash the market today? Do whatever you've got to do to crash the market. Now, another country, stock market has crashed as well. America just seems to be being propped up by the war in Ukraine. The money that is being donated to Zelensky, well, they don't get them. It goes to America, supplies the weapons. That cash, well, that cash stays in America. They will supply food, they will supply weapons, and they have supplied weapons now to Zelensky that they are firing across the border into Russia. You might recall Putin had stated that if they start firing US-made weapons into Russia, they would consider that an act of war of America. This is not, what you'd necessarily like to have happen. However, the Americans did stop supplying long-range missiles. They've got small arms and grenades and that sort of thing, some rocket launchers. I think they are also providing a lot of drones and a lot of intel support, a lot of observation and that kind of thing, to allow Zelensky and co. to do what? I don't know. Russians are everywhere in Ukraine, absolutely everywhere. And today, during a solo press conference, Joe Biden called President Zelensky, well, he referred to him as Trump at one stage. He also referred to Vice President Trump while speaking about Kamala Harris in his solo press conference today. It was an absolute mess and a very sad thing. If you have never seen an older person in cognitive decline, it is a terribly sad thing to view. And today it was on stage for all Americans to see. And I reckon most of them would have seen it. Why are the Democrats allowing that to happen? It's because none of them have the balls to go in and get rid of Biden, to get rid of Mrs. Biden, I suspect. Because like I say, you could prattle Joe off, wheel him out, put him in a black car, take him to his house, set him up, let him go. You could think he's president until the day he dies. He wouldn't care. Wouldn't matter, sadly. But that's what it is. Jill would know, though. Jill wouldn't be invited to all those A-listed parties, the 6-star events with the 7-star service, the secret 7-star service. And, well, I guess she'll still have Secret Service support for the rest of her life now anyway, being a ex-First Lady. So, well, hopefully an ex-First Lady in the not-too-distant future. So if Russia is teetering or has collapsed, wouldn't you think that they might also talk to some of their allies and say, how are you guys going? Of course, picking up the phone to China at the moment could have a bit of a problem because the Bank of China appears to be bankrupt. These are people lining up trying to get the money out of that bank. This would be a bank that was heavily involved Chinese construction firm that a year ago $1 million to build. Every major construction project in China was financed through that bank, and the company tasked with doing most of the building was Evergrande. Also, interestingly, a shipping company owned by them, also a name used for Hillary Clinton, and you might remember the Evergrande boating mishap in the Suez Canal that netted 3,000 children, 5 supposedly nuclear weapons, or 5 other critical weapon systems that were going to be put into use in America, that were being shipped into America to create an explosion of quite some magnitude. When are you going to hear about all that in the mainstream media? I don't know. But the truth is out there, folks. You've just got to go for it. Got to go looking for it. And I don't know what truth we're going to get out of those bloody... Do ever forget what they did to us, folks? And in my industry, they need to be held accountable. Some of them, I'm sure, felt that they were doing the right thing. And what I'm about to play you, I think, was done by a guy who really felt he was doing the right thing, although he is certainly one of the elites. And if he got wind that he wasn't an elite, he'd be spilling the beans on everybody that he knew, because he doesn't like being left out. But never forget that we had big radio and TV stars in this country pushing the shit on you. And when I say the shit, I'm talking about the squirty juice. I hadn't seen this when he released this. Well, I suppose it's over 12 or 18 months ago now. I'm going to play a little bit of it for you now. I'll probably get into the shit for playing it, but we'll see what happens. Fast, baby.
All right, stop. Vex vaccinate and listen. We are back with a brand new injection. Someone grabbed a hold of you tightly, rolled up your sleeves with a daily or nightly. Will this ever stop? Yo, we don't know, but stuck in lockdown really blows. Too many people think vax is a scandal. Take 2 shots and COVID's handled. Pfizer or AstraZeneca. What rhymes with AstraZeneca? Oh yeah, America. One of 100 places you can travel to. So just relax, lay down your tinfoil hats and just get vaxxed. So we can go back to the old ways, shaking hands, kissing strangers all day. Vaxxed, baby.
Never forget what they did. Never forget what they did. And how they made you feel for not going along with their little imaginary peace. Can't have that. Okay, folks, not so much a Friday free-for-all tonight. The Galactic Larrikins are missing in action. Vince is on the road coming back from Adelaide, and I hope he's having a good, safe trip. So thank you for that. Simon and Christy, and Carly, rather, who came on the show earlier today. If you are down in Victoria, if you can get to Mansfield tomorrow, it would be awesome to get your support there. Put it this way, if you like going out into the forests, if you don't go, don't come complaining when you don't have a forest to drive to anymore. I mean, folks, they'll wait. Well, one day you just might want to. And what about if you're not allowed? Oh, that'll be okay. I can look at them on telly. Do not let this happen, folks. If you can get to Mansfield tomorrow, show your support or lose your forests. The same for New South Wales, for Queensland, for Western Australia, and other places. I'm sure South Australia won't be far behind if they're not already figuring out how to kick you off the beaches there too. What's going on in Cape York? I saw somebody in the chat want a bit more information about that. Cape York is going to be handed back to the land councils. That will mean that essentially you'll be cut off from it. It'll become Land Corporation, Aboriginal Land Corporation land. And of course, we know how the corporations work, don't we? So unless you plan to stump up many, many, many hundreds of millions of dollars, you're stuffed. No way will you be heading up Cape York in your 4-wheel drive. You won't even be heading it up in a Mini. On the normal road, on the flat road, you won't be allowed. So if that kind of thing upsets you, even if you're not into 4-wheel driving, just the simple fact that they would restrict the people who are, is that something you can support? Would you like the 4-wheel drivers to come and support you when they start restricting you from going to yoga class because it's 25 minutes away from where you live? Going to happen. Think of what you love doing most. Think of the government saying, oh, no, we're going to limit your ability to do that because the Greens, want the trees to grow better. And how the support of the 4-wheel drivers might be useful in your fight. Well, pay it forward. Head to Mansfield tomorrow, 1 o'clock, and it's 1 till 3. Make sure you go into a local shop. Doesn't matter whether you buy a lolly, an ice cream, a soft drink, or a 10-course meal. Make sure you tell them you're in town to support their business and this rally. Because if their business doesn't support the rally, if they're not going to go out and support the people who are coming in to town tomorrow, then Mansfield's going to die, along with so many other small little towns in the Victorian High Country. What's going to happen to Bright, Myrtleford, Beechworth? What's going to happen to those places? There's plenty of places in every state like that you'll be cut off from. So if you can go and support the folks in Mansfield tomorrow, it doesn't matter if you've got a 4-wheel drive or not. It's about restriction. It's about compliance. It's about force. So if you're happy to be forced then don't turn up. But don't expect help when you're going to be forced into something you don't want to do. We need to come together as a community. Just because you may not be into camping, shooting, whatever, it doesn't mean that your particular favourite thing isn't next on the list. They're coming for them all. This is about compliance and freedom. Do not comply. Save your freedom. Even if you never want to get in a four-wheel drive and go up a muddy dirt track in the middle of winter. Because there are neighbours, friends, family of yours that might want to do that. Might want to take the boys out or the kids out fishing. Might want to teach them how to shoot. Might want to teach them how to climb a tree. Might want to teach them how to look after the environment that they're experiencing. You won't be able to do that unless we, the people, start turning up to all these rallies en masse. And as I said in that interview, the Victorian government is probably the most prolific at ignoring all Australia ignores public, but simply do that to you. Yeah, what's that you say? Okay, no worries. That's how it works. What's that you say? No, fuck you. We have an agenda. You're just workers. You just supply the money. That's all. The sooner you wake up to it, the sooner your neighbours wake up to it, the people who are asleep wake up to it, the sooner it ends. The sooner it ends. One day, we're all going to come together and it will end. The people just need to grow. Probably not the ones that are watching this show. I think you've all acquitted yourself in that area fairly solidly. But some of the morons, some of the trolls, some of the fence sitters, some of those who are worried what others will think of them. Stop it. Stop it. Think about humanity. Don't think about self. Think about all of us. Think about what's good for you, good for your neighbour, what's good for your kids, your family, your future. Is it good for your future to be locked out of our lands? I would say it's not, although it certainly would thin the dickheads on the road. Good weekend.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants out. You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's rock!